นมัสการพระคุณเจ้า Honorable respected abbot Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen Wassalam wassalam ala sayyidi mursalin Mr. Yakut Nalin, President Jamiah Naleemiah Universities, Dr. Shukri, Director, Jamiah Naleemiah Universities, distinguished guests and participants, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to thank you all so much for giving me an opportunity to talk with you. Actually, I would like to warn you in advance that don't have a high expectation. I am here just simply to share with you my experiences, what we are doing. And as a Buddhist who have a strong interest in Islamic studies. So I'm not an Islamic ulama. Please keep in mind, I am just a mere student of Islamic studies. And I don't know any Arabic language, which is very difficult, and it's hampered my studies of Islam. So I read all the Islamic subject through English. So there will be an English version of Islam. And one thing that I can confirm with you is I study Islam with good intention, good wish, and if I make any mistake in advance, I think I need to make my apology now at this point. And after I finish my talk, I will make my tawbah to Allah later. What I would like to share with you, that will be in three parts. The first is the situation between Sri Lanka and Thailand. What are situations we are confronting today? And part number two is what are challenges of Sri Lanka and Thailand regarding the situation we are in today? And third, what are possible solutions from my thinking to the challenge and the situation of our countries? These will be three parts of my talk. And after that, please, your questions, comments, suggestions are always welcome because I need to learn from you as well. Now, the first point, situation in Sri Lanka and Thailand. To my understanding, first, look at very simple, basic fact, demographic structure. Sri Lanka has a population about 21 million. Thailand, we have about 65 million. Interestingly, religion. Sri Lanka, you have Buddhists about 70%, and you have Muslim about 10%. In Thailand, we have Buddhists even more. We have almost 90%, and Muslim about 10%. So 10% Muslim in both countries. This is a good number for us to remember. In other words, both countries, Muslim is a minority in a so-called Buddhist country. So this is a fact that we have to recognize. However, constitutions of both countries give freedoms and protections of religion. We are protected by the constitution to have freedoms of religious practice and belief. So we share the same kind of values of freedoms of belief and faith and practice. This is the first data that we need to keep in mind. Second, we all learn, and I learned as well, that the recent phenomenon today in both countries indicate a growing tension between Buddhists and Muslim. We cannot deny it, and we should not try to hide it because it's real. On the other side, we rather try to confront it and try to understand it, and more importantly, try to work together to address a common problems we share. Because it's impossible to divide, this will be a Muslim area, this will be a Buddhist area. Impossible. Constitution will not allow us to do so. Law will not allow us to do so. Therefore, how could we live together? This will be the fact that we have to keep in mind. Let me share with you, in Thailand, we have 10% Muslim in our population. But this 10% heavily populated in southern part of Thailand. 3 provinces, Yala, Narathiwat, and Pattani. 80% of the population in these 3 provinces are Muslim. So it's a very clear-cut, geographically division in the country. And also I learned that Muslim population in Sri Lanka heavily populated in the eastern part and the northwestern part of the country. However, the density is not, let's say, at the level that we have in southern Thailand. Speaking from this point, we should have had even a more serious problems. Because after you leave these 3 provinces in southern part of Thailand, you are going to another country, a Buddhist country. And for a Buddhist, if you travel into that area, you are going to another country as a Muslim community. It's much more clear-cut than Sri Lanka. So in other words, logically, we should have had more problems than you. This is my perception. Let me share with you, 10 years ago, as a Buddhist, I hardly traveled to the region. But because of my colleagues here, somewhere, somehow, he took me there. And I remember my wife, when I first traveling to southern part of Thailand, Muslim area. My wife is a Buddhist. He prayed so hard for Buddha to save me. And I said, thank you very much, but I have my duty to do. So what will happen, will happen. And later on, after I studied Islam, I would talk to my wife. Yes, you pray to our Buddha. That's very good. But from my Muslim colleagues, they say it's up to Allah. Whether you will continue your life in this world or He want to see you now, it's up to Him. We cannot do anything about it. With this kind of thinking of Buddhism and Islam, very similar. It means both religions recognize some power above human power. In Buddhism, in Thai, Theravada Buddhists, we say this is the powers of nature, the laws of nature, govern our act and our behavior. In Islam, this is Sunnatullah. This is Tawheed, La ilaha illallah. Govern everything. It's up to Allah, which is beyond the human power to change or to do anything. This is why in Islam you have one important word. Everyone said about it, but hardly recognize the values of it. Insha'Allah. Insha'Allah is not just a mere expression. Well, in English we will say, Kesela Selah. But in Islam, no, it's not that. To me, as a student of Islam, Insha'Allah means you have done your duty with your utmost effort. The result of that, partly under your effort, but another part is decided by Allah. That's why we call Insha'Allah. If not, it will be my power to do this. We share common logic. As a Buddhist, it might be our previous karma, which control me. I cannot do anything about it, and I cannot change it. This is to illustrate my point. So in other words, the tension is there. Muslim and Buddhist, we cannot deny. Unfortunately, this violence has turned, this tension has turned into violent action, which cause physical damage and loss of life in our countries, both Buddhist and Muslim. Therefore, we have to recognize that ethno-religious tension exists in our country. And the question is how much we understand the nature of this tension and what kind of solution we could think of rather than inshallah. So this is a very important point that I would like to share with you, the situation we are in. In addition to that, I recognize that in Sri Lanka and Thailand, millions of the people in both countries are still poor. You cannot deny that millions of Sri Lankan in 20-some million still poor. Millions of Thai across the country still poor. And in addition to that, they receive limited education. In other words, they are more or less ignorant to what's happening in our society, in our economic community. Unfortunately, because of that weaknesses, the poverty and ignorance of our people have been politically manipulated. I don't want to make any political statement here, but as a scholar, we have to speak the fact. We have to try to understand the truth, which in Islam is very important. Everyone must try to grab the truth and comprehend it. To my reading of Islam, you call it yafqahun. So what I'm doing is yafqahun. Try to get to the truth of the phenomenon. So the economic factors, economic problems, social problems, as I already mentioned, like poverty, low qualities of education, drug, corruption, all these make the tension very easily to be turned into violence. And this is very dangerous to our society, particularly our future. The situation we are in, as I already described, critical issues affected peaceful coexistence, which we aim at, are as follows, to my understanding of this situation. Those problems lead to inequality. Inequality, we all know. I need not to give you more facts. You already know by your experience. For example, gap between rich and poor, gap between urban and rural, gap between educated and less educated. There's a gap there, inequality. And both Islam and Buddhism, we promote and believe in equality. Inequality is not the which of the two religions we believe in. Okay. Second critical issues, injustice. Inequality, injustice. Injustice between people and people. Between ordinary people and government officials. A lot of injustice. On the street, we are here. I observe police officers stop one car but not the other. My question is, why? I don't intend to answer this question, but I observe the inequality because both cars in front of me, they, let's say, override the traffic law. So there's an injustice over there. Injustice between big business and small business. This is very important. And to be very honest with you, this is the area that Muslim businessmen have to think hard about it. Because Muslim businessmen, they are so-called privileged groups of people. In Thailand, we have the same problems. Okay. Inequality, injustice, and last but not least, is internal disunity and conflict. These are the critical issues we have. Disunity, not only between Buddhists and Muslim, even among Muslim and among Buddhists, also disunity. Disunity between minorities and majorities. Simple question is, why? Why is such the case? With this situation we are in, these contemporary situations lead to challenges of peaceful coexistence and development of Sri Lanka and Thailand. Without these issues, we could live together easily. We could develop our country much faster than today. But because of these situations stated, it hampers our coexistence, particularly in a peaceful way. And it also hinders our development. This is what I would like to share with you, that Sri Lanka and Thailand, actually, we hold many common issues. And we are trying to manage them, but not yet successful. We have problems as well. Don't think that we don't have problems. You have problems. Possibly I may explain our problems and you say, well, Sri Lanka have no problems. We both have problems. And this situation leads us to a very important question. That is, within these contextual realities, poverty, ignorance, conflict, how could we live together peacefully? These are the critical questions for all of us here, not only me, but we all have the duty and responsibility to think and try to find a solution together. So this will be my first point on situation that we are in. Second part is the challenge. These situations challenge us all here. Contemporary challenges of Sri Lanka and Thailand. As I already said, how to establish a peaceful coexistence and development in a multicultural society, in a Buddhist-Muslim community in particular, in our case. These are the critical questions that we have to address together. Of course, in responding to these questions, it is our goal, it is our objectives that we have and we share. Is it interesting? For you, Muslim, for me, Buddhist, but we hold common goal and objectives. If we would walk out from this hall and get into the street and talk to a Buddhist or a Muslim and say we have a common goal and objective, they will say you must be something wrong. But after we listen to the reality, to the fact we are confronting, we can easily share, yes, we have a common goal and objectives. That's already reflect something in the process of working together for a peaceful coexistence in itself, which I will capture in my last part of my talk. Now, to me, I would like to share our experiences in Thailand with you, what we are doing. We learned that the foundations of peaceful coexistence and development, to me, from the real practice, must begin with interaction. We need to interact. If we try to separate from each other, starting from physical separation, Buddhist children go to Buddhist school, Muslim children go to Muslim school, you go to this restaurant, I go to the other restaurant. This kind of separation will make the situation even worse. We need more interaction between Muslim and Buddhists and other ethnic groups. So I would beg you all to promote interaction, physical interaction, of course, in a peaceful way. For example, we could do social services together. How beautiful it is if you see smart, intelligent young Muslim student offer a tutoring to underprivileged Buddhist student and vice versa. How beautiful it can be. And I learned that you have done many good jobs. For example, our Sangha community teach Buddhist principle to Muslim ulama and vice versa. And I was very impressed, Honorable Sangha. Last night, I was at the council of the ulama. And one of the ulama, they say in Bali, the 5 principles, Panatipata Veramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyami. I need not to finish all 5. And later on, I will quote some Quranic verse as well to make it equal. So we must begin with interaction, because interaction will bring about mutual understanding. If you don't interact, you cannot say that you understand. You cannot understand Buddhist people or Muslim people through reading only. But you must interact, and then you will understand. So this is what we begin with. Let me give you a concrete example that we did. I have been working with Dr. Yusuf Talek at the College of Islamic Studies for almost 10 years. And the university supports us. We are doing 2 things that I would like to share with you. We are doing many things, but 2 things that I would like to share with you. First, we went to a poor village, a Muslim village, which also have some Buddhists in that village. Dr. Yusuf Talek, he's the project manager of that in Narathiwat. Basic problems of that village is poverty. So we went there and used our so-called scientific knowledge and Islamic knowledge to analyze the situation of the village. So we learned that we have problems with unfertile soil, we have problems of water, we have problems of market to sell their crops, and so on. Use the management knowledge and technology to organize our farmers, our villagers, to be able to sell their produce, and they earn income. Once they earn income through their own action, Dr. Yusuf Talek immediately told their Muslim villagers, earlier you are the lower hand, now you are strong enough to be the upper hand, to complete the Sakat concept. Sakat concept is not just a mere receiving at all time. Allah doesn't say so. To my understanding, Allah asks those who have the privilege to share and help them to stand on their own feet. Then they could help others accordingly. I think it's a beautiful concept. If you would go to American, European, British universities regarding on community development, it's a Sagat concept. But they don't say so. They say it's a community development theory. It had been in the Quran for thousands of years. This is what we did. So after villagers earn quite substantive money, you might not believe it, from having a very heavy debt, something like 500,000 rupees, now they earn 40,000 rupees per month by their own hand, by their own efforts. In doing this, we are qualified to say, Alhamdulillah. It's not us, because we have done our part, the other parts by Allah. That's why we call Alhamdulillah to this. So this is what we did, the first project. If I give lectures, he preach Islam, but no action, people still poor in that village. For the Ramadan, they are looking for more zakat. And of the Ramadan period, they create more debt. And it will be downward spiral like this until they die. We don't want to see that. And we believe that God give us enough efforts and intelligence to address these problems. So we each jihad to these problems, not carry a bomb and kill myself. That's not we understand jihad. We understand jihad as an action which requires utmost effort of the resources we receive from God to serve God's goals and objectives and purpose. This is what we did, and it's proved to be successful. Second project, we learned that ignorance is our major problem, particularly among Muslims. I made a very critical statement to my Muslim friends in the area. I told them that when we have new investment in the area, mostly owned by Buddhist Chinese, what Muslim can participate in that project, either factory, company, department store, whatsoever. Muslim can do two things. For male, you can be security guard. For female, you can be housekeeper. That's all. I ask, why not Muslim be factory manager, factory engineer, accountant, and so on? Why not? Whether Muslim doesn't have any brain to do so? I don't think so. Therefore, we discuss and say, education is the key. Then we research into so-called curriculum and ways of teaching of our Islamic school. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know, we disagree with them. We agree with their Islamic education regarding Islamic principle. We agree with that. However, we believe that we should add professional training, professional subject into it, but integrated into the same package. That's the challenge we have. Let me give you one example of our class. Eventually we open upper secondary school, and this is second year already. In a class of biology, our lecturers started the class with the issues of zina, adultery. Then he explained what's wrong about it, what's the Quran said about it, what's the Hadith explain, what kind of solution to address the issue when you have the adultery problems. Within 5 minutes, student understand clearly. Then he conclude, subjects of science, biology, zina is a mere reproduction. You reproduce human being, and then you get a baby. There's no right or wrong. But according to Islam, a certain manners of reproduction is wrong. Some production under a certain rule is the right thing. Therefore, science must be guided by Islamic values and ethics. In other words, secular subject must be guided by religious ethics. Without that, secular knowledge will lead us to a dead end. I received one of the best education on earth. I got my PhD from Johns Hopkins, the university. And I did not just a mere completing my PhD at Johns Hopkins. I was the number one of the university in my class. Those Americans and Europeans, I'm far better than them. And I can prove to you that secular subject alone lead us to a dead end. Look at this world. Global warming, war, conflict, weapons. What happened? All the secular subject knowledge contribute all these. Because subject knowledge never have any moral principle to guide the utilization of that knowledge. This is why we cannot separate religious education from secular education. We need to put that back together. Unfortunately, in Thailand and in many countries, due to the so-called Renaissance influence, 300-400 years ago, convinced us to separate these two subjects and turn it into a political issue. But actually, it's a human being issue. It's not a political issue. Therefore, we turn our school into this direction. Let me share with you. Our students, the first group, we have about 60 students. After 1 year, they have been with us. Now, our school had been recognized as the best school in southern part of Thailand just within 1 year. I am willing to share what we have with you from inside out. Because when you have peace, prosperities, peaceful coexistence, it's good to our world. We are not competing with you. You are our friend. So we are willing to share. I'm seriously say it. But if you ask the business company, suppose if they own this company, they say no. Mr. Naleem, if you want this for your school, how much you're going to pay? For us, it's for free. Why? Because we believe in Buddha, we believe in Allah. This is the contribution of human being to do to their human being. So with this new approach, new concept, I learned a lot from Islam, to be very honest about. In Islam, secular subject, you have only teachers. But in Muslim, you have many roles of teachers. Secular school in this country, you have only mu'alim, who teach you the know-how, the knowledge. But you don't have murabbi, who offer the good role model to learn. And many things I learned from my Muslim children. The way to educate certain things is not in the classroom. It has to be out of the classroom. Let me give you an example. Our school ended at 2:30 in the afternoon. And every single student have to play sports at least 1.5 hours. It doesn't mean that, well, teachers will be free. No, in our school, teacher, you go to the sports field and play with the students. Teacher asked me, what should I do? Why me? I told my teachers, you go to the sports field and teach your student there. Because many things you cannot teach them in class. They asked me, what? I teach everything in class. I said, well, okay, let me give you an example. Can you teach, do you think that perseverance is important in our life? Teacher said, yes, of course. And I asked him, could you lecture perseverance in class and make them understand? No. Then I say, the way to teach, put your students in the sports, let them run non-stop 1.5 hours. They almost fainted. They fall down. And you go and kneel down next to that particular student and say, keep on going. Stand up again. It's all right to fall down, but you have to stand up quickly and move forward. Student physically almost exhausted, but with the stimulation of the teachers, slowly stand up and continue running. And at the end of the game, teachers conclude to the students, you remember Abdul Rahim? You remember? This is perseverance. You exercise your perseverance. Now you understand when we say you're exhausting, what really means. Then the teacher say, okay, very good, you understand it. That's for you alone. This evening, when you go back to your dorm, write an essay for 2 pages. Express the feeling that you had at that particular second. Share with your friend. And then make a reflection. What do you think? What made you stand up again? Share with your students. This is the way we teach. That's why our school became one of the best in a very quick way. Once we do that and confident that it's a good way, I'm not saying that we are the best. There's no better model than this, no. What I'm saying is, after we succeed to a certain extent through this model, we share. Dr. Yusuf Talek, he immediately organized another 25 schools in the area and share this model. Tonight, I will leave Sri Lanka and arrive Bangkok early in the morning. I cannot go home. I have to go immediately with him to Pattani. And Friday morning, I have to give lectures for 3 hours to the school principals and teachers on the topics from mathematics to practice and Islamic ethics. How to integrate all this together. This will be my lectures, 3 hours on Friday morning. So this is an example that I would like to share with you that my talk or my thinking is not just a mere from reading, but more importantly from practice. And we learn from our students, we learn from our teachers. Therefore, what I would like to share with you, if I have to reflect what I just told you or the story happened, so I do my reflection as well. First, I told myself that as a Buddhist, what I want to see from my Muslim friends, my Muslim community. I ask myself, what for you are doing this? Am I doing that for money, for decoration, or for what? I ask myself. And my answer is very clear. I have done this for 10 years because I want to live with them in peace. Why? I don't want my children to fight anymore. Let the fight end in my generation. Let the fighting end in my generation. My children's generation should be the generations of peace among diversities of cultures. This is the answers to myself. Therefore, what can I do? Once I wish or aim it that way, I told myself that I must study Islam. If I don't understand Islam, it's impossible for me to understand the thinking, the mindset of my Muslim friends. I cannot enforce Buddhist principle to Muslim, impossible, and vice versa. So the best way is I must understand Islam. That's why I start reading Quran. I have Quran on my desk, and I consult the Quran almost every day. To give you a small tip, the school, as I mentioned to you, I select 3 Quranic verses to be the philosophies of my school. The first one, we will put into the entrance gate, like Harvard and Johns Hopkins, they have the entrance motto. My school will have that. I got it from Al-Fatiha, Ihdina Sirat al-Mustaqim. This school will sirat to Allah, Sirat al-Mustaqim. We shall not go to any Sibyl. No, Sirat al-Mustaqim. Even we try to follow the Sirat al-Mustaqim, we also have problems because Allah testing us at all times. On the one hand, we have Sharia as a wall to protect us from the Satan. But on the other hand, Allah gives windows for Satan to come in. Whether you will listen to Satan or Allah. So it's just not a mere safe, happy place that Allah gives us. Allah gives us direction, and more importantly, Allah gives you freedoms to decide which direction you will follow. So I explain this to my students. Do you want to follow this Sirat al-Mustaqim? If not, you better ask your parents to go to other school, not this school. Because this school will be Sirat al-Mustaqim. That will be the first Quranic verse that I select. The second Quranic verse I select, we will put it in front of the academic complex of our school after we have one good design in the near future. This was from Al-Baqarah. Wakasa lika ya aunakum, ummatan vasaton. This community is ummatan vasaton. Wasatiya is very important. You cannot go to extreme. You have to be at the center. Because Allah tells us that when you are at the center, you will be safe. So we want you to create wasatiya ummatan vasaton. We need ummatan vasaton in Sri Lanka as well. So we shall remind our students every day, ummatan vasaton. One ulama in southern Thailand challenged me. Said, Dr. Kanok, you are wrong. You're just a student. I am PhD from Medina. The more important principle is Ummah Hidayah. Ummah Hidayah is the most important. I said, sir, I understand the significance of Hidayah. But if you Hidayah to follow Saitan, what will happen? Hidayah is important, but on the other hand, you need something to balance it. That is wasatiyah. And every single Muslim understand Hidayah, Ummah Hidayah, very well, because in the family, father also said, this is the decision. So, wasatiyah is our second philosophy. The third verse that I select, we will put it at the exit gate of the school. Rahmatan lil Alamin. You, after you understand Islam, practice Islam in the right way, in a wasatiyah way, you must go and bring this Rahmatan to everyone, not only Muslim, including non-Muslim. Because Allah said, Alamin, not Muslimin. Not Rahmatan lil Muslimin, no. It's Rahmatan lil Alamin. So, these will be three basic philosophies of our students. So, this is an example that I would like to share with you. I study Islam. Now, you believe that I study Islam, right? More importantly, what I learned from Islam. Islam is a religion of practice. Buddhism also a religion of practice. You cannot pray for Buddha. You cannot just simply pray for Allah and do nothing and then you will get everything. No. So practice is very important. So we all go to the community, go to the school and work accordingly. This is what I observe, what I learn. So I would like to share with you that in Sri Lanka, I would wish to see more Buddhists to understand Islam. And I also would wish that Muslims in Sri Lanka and Thailand would understand Buddhism, at least as much as I understand Islam. So in that case, we will not have problems because we understand each other. So that's the first lesson that I reflect from my work. Second point of my reflection, from this practice of Islam by a Buddhist in a real situation, I can see values and benefits of Islam. Through this action, my prejudice, my bias against Islam has been minimized and disappeared. To be very honest with you, before that, I dare not to take halal food because many Muslims, they are not quite hygienic. But actually, when you study the halal concept, it's a very hygienic concept. So my misconception has been managed through an understanding of Islam. And more importantly, I began to understand and accept Islam and Muslim. Many colleagues of mine asked me, when will you join Islam? When will you ashhadu? I told my friends, particularly Muslim friends, that's the decisions of Allah, not me. So for the time being, call me Abu Talib. So that's my second part, I see the values, I see the benefits of Islam. Third reflection I have, I begin to have trust to Islam, to Muslim, and I can have a sincere cooperation between myself and Muslim friends, which in Islam you have a very beautiful concept. Ikhlas and amana is very important. We need to build ikhlas. Ikhlas is sincerity. Amana, trust. We need to have sincerity and trust between Buddhist and Muslim. And in doing that, we have to prove it, we have to earn it. We cannot demand from either side. So that will be my third reflection of my work. Through my understanding as a Buddhist to Islam, let me share with you, I believe that there will be some Buddhists in this hall, in addition to our abbot here. May I share with you, my Buddhist friend? To me, Islam composed of two important parts. The first part is the theoretical part, which is a belief system of Islam. In Arabic, you call kalam. This is very important. The second part is the practical part, which is the worship and the life of Muslim. So you have theory and you have practice. And Islamic rulings, rules and regulations is all extracted from the Quran and Sunnah through usul fiqh. And once you have fiqh, then you practice accordingly. And then you have a good Muslim ummah. Without that, no Muslim ummah. Our Muslim ummah is weak simply because our extractions of rules and regulations from Quran and Sunnah are not quite relevant to the contextual realities we are living in. So this is the duties of our Islamic scholar to think about it. And I totally believe and agree and understand that the Quran and Sunnah contain universal principles. This is very important. And this is Tawheed of Islam, universal principle, based on La ilaha illallah, which translated into Sunnatullah. And Sunnatullah is the biggest system. All subsystems fall into that system. And this is the unities of God. That's why we call La ilaha illallah, only one God. When it's one God, it means one system, no multi-system. Multi-system we have only as a subset, but not as a guiding system. The guiding system is only one system. That is Sunnatullah. This is the way I understand Islam. With these rules and regulations derived from this principle, its command individual, familial, social, moral, and religious life of everyone in the community. Therefore, in order to understand Islam to me, I must try to grasp the whole truth of Islam and comprehend it totally. I learned this in the Arabic term. You call it yafqahun. If you don't get into the truth, you will not understand Islam. You have to go to the truth of Islam. With this principle, then when we apply Islam, we have to confront realities. And in confronting realities, we have to use our wisdom, our hikmah, not our emotion. Because in the Quran said to other peoples of the book, Jewish, Christian, if they think that they are better and Islam is worse, call them in and exercise our hikmah and prove to them that Islam is better. That's in the Quran, right? So why not we follow? We need not to fight. We can call our Buddhist friends, we can call our Christian friend, we can call our Hindu friend and discuss about it. Use our hikmah. Once we use our hikmah, according to Islam, to my understanding, we will be able to manage reality better. To be specific, we can solve problems better. In doing so, it means we are approaching Allah. We are getting closer to Allah in doing that. To be very critical to our Muslim colleagues here, I apologize in advance to say this. Many Muslims, when they have problems, they forget Allah. They go to other sources for problem solving. For example, my Muslim villagers, when they are poor, rather than consult Allah and Quran and Sunnah, they go to the government and ask for more money. That's wrong. It's not Islamic to me. So I think the fundamental problems of Muslim, when you have problems, you don't use Islam to solve that problems. You go for other sources. And when you cannot solve that problems, you blame Islam. Islam couldn't help me. Actually, you did not use Islam. So with this kind of understanding, you can see that I wholeheartedly for Islam when I confront the problems with Muslim communities. Therefore, to me, Islam teaches me to confront realities and to try to understand the problems of the realities. When I try to do so, I must try to find solution through Islamic methodology in order to achieve the Islamic goal. This is my understanding. So how can I do it? What I learned, in Islam you have 4 important sources of knowledge: the Quran, Sunnah, Ijma, and Qiyas. Surprisingly, we teach Quran and Sunnah, but we hardly teach Ijma and Qiyas. So this is something Islamic education have to review what we are doing. From the experience that I briefly share with you, I asked myself, how could I develop understanding and trust, hopefully, among Buddhists and Muslims? That's the question I asked myself. Not only for this talk, back at home. Point number 1, my answers. We have to open our heart. This is Quranic verse. Allah said, the worst part of human being is your heart is blind. If your heart is blind, that's the end of everything. So I don't want to make my heart blind towards Islam. I open my heart to Islam and put my Buddhism for the time being aside. I'm not saying that I release my Buddhism, but I put aside for the time being and then open my heart to Islam and study. This is what I did. And lead to the understanding and trust, as I already explained. That's the first point. Second point, I confront realities. And I try to listen to information and facts as much as possible. And this is also Quranic. You have to understand all aspects of realities. You have to try to understand the totalities of reality in order to understand the issue. This is I learned from the Quran and Sunnah. Third, I recognize the difference between the two religions. The faith, practice, rulings, I recognize the difference. However, I respect the diversities of them. And I respect the diversities of realities I confront. This is what I did. And helped me pass through obstacles and problems in my work. Fourth, I exercise my wisdom, not my force, in problem solving. We never command, if you want to get this support, do this. That's not our way. We communicate with them, convince them, because we believe that God gives them enough brain to understand, enough physical power to do things by themselves. So we communicate. Successfully, alhamdulillah, they follow us and solve the problems and earn 40,000 rupees a month. Last but not least, we have to work together between Muslim and Buddhists. Peaceful coexistence cannot happen just a mere public lecture like this. This kind of public lecture is a good beginning, good starting point, but it's not the end. We need to have action with ikhlas. Then we will earn amana between us. This is what we should do. Therefore, I would suggest you all to work together between Muslim and Buddhists in order to find practical solutions and apply them to the real problems step by step. Don't try to move forward, leap forward, impossible. That reminds me to the decisions of Prophet Muhammad to leave Makkah to Medina. Why? Prophet decided to retreat. Why not us? We have to know and learn how to retreat as well. Now, one of the reasons that I was invited to speak here, I believe because of some of your colleagues from Jamiah, Naleemiah attended our conference in July. In July, I was invited by the organizer to give a closing reflection of the conference, which is entitled Islamic Education as a Driving Force for Peaceful Coexistence and Development. In that reflection, I raised three critical issues. First question I ask, why Islamic civilization in the first 300 years is so prosperous? 300 years after Prophet Muhammad. Why civilization of Islam is so prosperous? Everyone knows. You can look at the heritage in southern Spain, for example, in Iraq, unfortunately destroyed by war a lot by now. What factors caused the civilization in that period? We have to learn. And whether it's still relevant to our contemporary society, if yes, why not do it? But we cannot just simply say, I don't know. This is the first critical questions I put to our colleagues from over 40 countries around the world. And Dr. Akla, he was there. Second questions I posted, why powerful and solid Ottoman state came to an end? Why did Sultan Abdul Hamid II unsuccessfully secure the long-established Ottoman state? Why? What happened? The biggest Islamic state, but failed to confront with the challenge of capitalism and colonialism. If Islam cannot match with capitalism and colonialism, so in that case, we better go home and do nothing. I don't think so. So in that case, this is the question we have to ask. Why? The third question I ask, why independence and natural resources, particularly oil and natural gases, of the Muslim world, Arab world in particular, could not lead to peaceful coexistence and development in this contemporary world? Why? What happened to those oil and gases? I think these are three important questions of three different important periods of Islam civilization. My answer as a student of Islamic education center around two basic ideas to these three questions. First is freedoms of thinking bring prosperity to Islam. I believe that freedoms of thinking firmly adhere to Islamic worldview and principle play an essential role in helping Islamic scholars during the early period of Islam to be able to find effective applications of the Quran and Sunnah to challenges of their contextuality at that time. Freedoms of thinking is very important. So this is my hypothesis. And I would be very happy if any Muslim scholar would falsify this hypothesis. But to me, through my reading and data collection to some extent, I verify this hypothesis. Second point, second ideas, effective application of Islam through its methodology to meet new challenges. In other words, I believe that ijtihad helps Islam to pass through obstacles and solve problems. After we have mazhab, then we have taqlid. And taqlid and new thinking. But what we are confronting today, our contemporary world keeps changing so rapidly. We have new issues, new problems at all the time, every single day. Taqlid could not respond to that. I'm not saying that mazhab is not good. Mazhab is good, but not good enough to be relevant to our contemporary realities. For example, we have ladies here. Human rights issues, family planning issue. How could we respond? Could we say that women should not work, women should not receive equal pay? If so, how could we explain the equality concept of Islam? These kind of issues has to be revisited again. So ijtihad is very important. Therefore, I argue that the Ottoman leadership, through its Islamic scholar, could not provide effective application of Islam to handle new capitalist and colonial challenges at that time. And we still cannot find consensus among contemporary Islamic communities of scholars on solution to extremisms and violence today. The complexity of contemporary context is still far beyond consensus among Islamic scholars. When we talk about ijtihad, we talk about mujtahid. May I ask, do you have any single mujtahid in Sri Lanka? I don't think so. In Thailand, no mujtahid. If we don't have mujtahid, according to the taqlid, you cannot do ijtihad. These are simple questions, but critical. So when I think about it on this issue, in this perspective, I'm convinced that ijtihad should be the issue of Islamic education. And it cannot be done by a single person, because the complexities of the problems we are confronting today is too complex, too high, than any particular expert to address. This morning, I was at the university, and they share with me on this. They say they're from Egyptian ulama at the university. They say, you have 4 physicians, 1 patient, and they cannot agree among each other how to treat the patient. That's the problem, because they are too specialized, which is really against Islam, because Islam is a holistic principle. But we already trained to do by ourselves. We forget Islam in that kind of training. But I told my colleagues over there, I say 4 doctors, 1 patient is all right. But unfortunately, because the 4 doctors cannot agree, then the patient dies. Then my question is, who takes the responsibility of the death of the patient? That will be my question. So, this is what I'm thinking of Islamic scholar must try to address challenges of Islamic communities in the past to understand it. Now, let me bring your attention to 3 examples which I presented in the last conference. May I read? First, Muhammad al-Ghazali, known as one of the most influential Muslim scholars. During his time in the 11th century, he called it for mujtahid, a renewal of faith and also an integration of Islamic knowledge. He encouraged Islamic education to expand its perspectives in order to find a better solution of Islamic challenges at his time. Second, Muhammad Abdud, who made a well-known statement 100 years ago, which has been quoted up until today. He said, quote, "I went to the West and saw Islam, but no Muslim. I got back to the East, I saw Muslim, but not Islam," unquote. Abdud holds that the 2 greatest possessions relating to religion, that man was graced with ears, and independence of will, and independence of thought. This is the 2 possessions we got from God. In other words, man is given intelligence by God so that he could be guided by knowledge and reasoning. Thus, according to Abdud, Muslims could not simply rely on the interpretations of texts provided by medieval clerics. They need to use their own reasoning to keep up with changing realities in different space and times. Third, Ismail al-Faruqi, a leading contemporary Muslim scholar in the 20th century. He believed that non-Arab Muslim and non-Muslim Arabs could be brought together through Urapa. Urapa is the only context within which the non-Muslim Arab could be integrated into their larger societies. Through his firm belief in the Quran, he called for an integration of all subjects and disciplines secular and religious ones, and to be guided by the true nature of Islam. Thus, he called for an Islamization of knowledge. Towards the end of his life, he made an important remark, reflecting his thought as quoted by Ibn Yunus as follows, quote, "Until a few months ago, I was a Palestinian, an Arab, and a Muslim. Now, I am a Muslim who happens to be an Arab from Palestine," unquote. Al-Faruqi wished to confirm that Islam is beyond ethnicity, place of birth, language use, or colors of skin. Islam is beyond that, beyond those. Now, we can see that Ghazali, Abdud, and Faruqi shared one key common idea, that is, Islamic education and interpretation and application of Islam in particular must be revived and reformed in order to meet new challenges and provide human society with better solutions on how to develop their society and secure a peaceful coexistence among Muslim and between Muslim and non-Muslim. Without doubt, Ghazali, Abdud, and Faruqi had made some progresses in paving new ideas to Islamic scholars today. But it has not yet led to a consensus among Islamic scholars on how to apply Islam to address problems of our contemporary world, particularly extremism and violence. Now, this intellectual heritage is in our hands to carry on their torch into the future. That's part of my reflection in the conference. With that, now, may I put a question to you? How Islamic scholars in Sri Lanka interpret and apply Quran and Sunnah to address contemporary problems and challenges of Sri Lanka? It is our mission to find effective solutions to those problems and challenges. I am confident that the Quran and Sunnah have provided us with worldview, principle, ethical values, and norms more than enough to apply them to any contextual reality in order to establish a peaceful coexistence and development, including in Sri Lanka and Thailand. This is our duty and responsibility to exercise our ijtihad to find a solution. After we do that, we are qualified to say, Inshallah. We have to apply Islamic principles and values to our confronting problems. To be specific, we need to exercise ijtihad and find solution to end inequalities, injustice, and internal conflict in our society. These are the challenge we have today. We all have this challenge. Now let me move on to the last part of my talk. Possible solutions to our contemporary challenges. From the discussion we have so far, when I look back to Islamic principles and values, I observe that there are very important 7 sets of values, but this value set has been challenged by contemporary world today, which we need to research and understand and apply to the reality we are in today. First, values of faith and reasoning. Faith, Aqidah, is very important. Iman is very important. But at the same time, reasoning also important as well. We cannot teach our Islam to our children, our students, by using a mere Aqidah or Iman. Because they will ask, why not this, why not that? So we need to bring reasoning in to the picture. However, we have to be careful We have to be Vasatiya, not to go to extreme of the nationalist approach, which can jeopardize Aqidah of Islam. This is why we call Vasatiya, Ummah Vasatiya. Second set of values, freedoms and responsibility. We demand freedoms. Everyone wants freedoms. But Islam tells us that you have freedoms, but at the same time, responsibility follow accordingly. How could you balance between freedoms and responsibility? You cannot demand either one separately. It goes together. Third, private properties and public property. I recognize that Islamic principle hold private property is very important. But if we look beyond our individual self, we look at the community, we have public property as well. If we apply our fiqh, use our ummah as a level of analysis, then public property is indispensable as well. So what's the relationship between ourselves and our community? That's the issues of private properties and public property. We have to find the balance. I can see easily that in Sri Lanka, you only care private property. Public property is the responsibility of the government. Something wrong happened, it's not my responsibility. Similar to Thailand. Fourth, individualism and collectivism. Islam, as I said, Wahida, you need unity, very important. But not at the expense of no individual values, because Allah gives us individual choice, either to follow and not follow Him. So we have to find the balance between these two values. 6, materialism and spiritualism. I need not to go into details. You all know them well. Last but not least, secular education and Islamic education. I already illustrated what we are doing. Therefore, Islamic researchers and scholars, both in Sri Lanka and Thailand, have to find the balanced mix of those 7 sets of values, which is relevant to our contemporary realities, society today, in order to move forward our society, particularly towards peaceful coexistence and development. To me, ijtihad is inevitable in our contemporary world. The key question is, how can we do ijtihad in our society where Muslim is a minority? This is a very important question. Let me share with you a model that I learned, maybe a possible model for Islamic application to contextual realities. Actually, this is I adopted and translated from so-called pizza concept. First, we begin with problems in context, like poverty. And then we formulate these problems, real problems, into Islamic problems. Poverty in real life reflect or equivalent to what kind of problems in your Islamic practice? We have to translate that, reformulate the problems in Islamic way. And after that, we shall employ Islamic principles and values in order to find solution to that Islamic problems. Then we will have Islamic solution or result. And after that, we interpret the Islamic result or solution back to reality. Make it practical in real life. Then it will become result or solution of the real problems. And after we achieve that, we shall evaluate back to the problems that we begin with, whether it's achieve the target or deviate from the target. With this loop, we can apply Islamic principles and values to the real issues. This metaphor is simple, but to do it in reality is very difficult, I understand. But are we willing to work together on this? If yes, you better convince your president, Naleem, to visit Thailand. And then we will start working together. Without his visit, Allah said, Kanok, wait until he is called by Allah. So, to me, as I already mentioned, that three key problems of Muslims in Thailand, and possibly the same in Sri Lanka, is poverty, ignorance, and internal conflict and disunity. Therefore, I believe that university, Jamiah, Naleemiah, university in particular, must bring your knowledge and technology to the communities and prove to the people that you are competent enough to solve their problems. If you cannot solve the problems of the community, how could you convince the parents to send their children to your university? Because what they will get for sure is a certificate and a degree, but nothing else. Do you want your university to be like that? I don't think so. So the university must prove that you are competent, you have enough knowledge, you have enough technology, you have enough skill, and you have enough mindset to solve the problems and prove to the people. Once you succeed in doing that, the whole community will be behind you. You need not to get support from the government. The community will support the university. When you go to Thailand, I'll show you the details on this one. Therefore, I am confident that poverty, ignorance, and internal conflict, if we apply this approach, we can manage them. And hopefully, we will be able to end it. This is my belief. So, with this presentation, may I propose 3 basic solutions for you all. First, universities. Jamiah Naleemiah University in particular. You have to employ your knowledge, technology, skill, and resources to interpret the universal principles of the Quran and Sunnah through logical reasoning and Islamic methodology in order to extract Islamic guidance and practical regulations to end problems and obstacles of peaceful coexistence and development. I think this is what you need to do. Not only you, we need to do together. In employing ijtihad, as stated, we need a collaboration and coordination among scientific disciplines guided by Islamic principles and values. I would like to propose this project to you as a joint mission between Sri Lanka and Thai University, entitled, I even willing to give you the title of the project, Islamic Education and Future of Peaceful Coexistence, a case study of Sri Lanka and Thailand. If this audience would agree with this project and would like the 2 universities to do it, why don't you give the 2 universities a big hand? So this is a public commitment, Mr. President. So that's the first proposal. Second proposal, we need to reform Islamic primary and secondary education. Our basic education must build a good and intelligent Muslim student. I intentionally, purposefully use good before intelligent. Because when you have intelligent student but bad, very difficult to turn around. But once you have good student, good mind, it's very easy to train them to be intelligent. Please keep that in mind. Good come before intelligence. Curriculum must be relevant to contemporary and future society. We need students with good heart and good brain to lead our society into the future. The curriculum must address three important issues. First is faith and reasoning. This issue is very important to Thailand case, very important. Second, Islamic application to contextual reality. We need to teach usul fiqh, usul tafsir, and their relationship with other sciences like engineering, economics, physics, medical science, and so on. Tolerance, forgiveness, reconciliation, and love. These are basic values of Islam and Buddhism. Mindset and characters of our students must be centered around these values. Curriculum of Islamic education must be reformed immediately. After we reform the subject matter, the content of our education, we must not forget teaching pedagogy. Surprisingly, modern education had been too specialized. They got a PhD in evaluation, they got PhD in management, they got PhD in curriculum, but we don't have good teachers. That's what we have in Thailand. I believe that in Sri Lanka it's the same. These teachers agree. So, teaching pedagogy must be returned to our teaching training college. This is why I would like to propose here to your university, Mr. Naleem, to open a new department of education or teachers training department. Because I already exceed my time. I have to apologize for that. I'll be concluding, okay. So that's put me in a safe place because there's no time for questions. Okay, anyway, so we need to return to teachers training program. Now, the last proposal is interfaith dialogue. Interfaith dialogue must be based on 4 basic foundations from our experience. First is love. You have to love your human being. You have to love your other religious friend. Without that, impossible. Not only to love among Muslims or Buddhists. Second, we need to be tolerant. We have to nurture tolerance, particularly tolerance of the difference. Third is recognition of the diversities. We must see diversity as a beauty. We must see unity within diversity. These are very important as the foundations of interfaith dialogue. And last is shared language of common concern. This is very important. The first 3, we can have endless seminar, but no action. The fourth one force us to go into action and work. And once we have a common concern and speak the same language on the same problems, then the real understanding, the real recognition, the real love, and the real tolerance will take place. So that will be, I cannot I don't have time to elaborate on that any longer. So, peaceful coexistence, to conclude my point, is not a mere absence of violence. But peaceful coexistence must consist of three pillars. First is peace, second is safety, and third is well-being. All these three must go hand in hand. Therefore, the interfaith dialogue is not simply a meeting or an exchange of words and ideas, but it has to lead into action, which leads to an end of violence and to bring about safety and well-being of the people. This will be the real interfaith dialogue. Now, may I conclude? Sri Lanka, to my understanding, was not a Muslim. There's no Muslim in Sri Lanka 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago. But some Muslim merchants, I learned that from Yemen, came to this island and do trading. Those Muslims exemplify good characteristic of merchants. For example, they're honest, they do fair deal, they sell quality products at fair price, and so on. On the personal side, they are humble, trustworthy, hardworking, intelligent, honest, and the like. After they settle on this island, some of them turned into an imam who sacrificed himself to the service of the others and God. Some of them became school teachers who devoted their life to teaching and their students. In other words, they became a role model to local people, particularly young generation. These realities of practice of Muslim in those days were evident to the eyes and contacts of local people. Consequently, Muslims were welcomed to the island. In addition, some local people even joined Islam, and Muslim Ummah began to be established and expand. This is the model I observed from the history. This history shows that Islam in Sri Lanka, including Thailand, grew and expanded through being a good example, a role model of Muslims. I believe that this pattern is still valid in our contemporary society. We should learn good things from our history. While we are working on many important measures in order to establish peaceful coexistence and development between various ethnic groups, we also have to practice Islam by being a good example to our Buddhist friends and vice versa for our Buddhists to Islam, to Muslim. In doing that, I'm confident that Islam can grow not by force, but rather by good role model in Sri Lanka and Thailand. In doing this, we are following the Sunnah of Prophet Muhammad and Buddha. Therefore, this road, Muslim and Buddhists could live together in peace and harmony. And Sri Lanka and Thailand will achieve their sustainable, peaceful coexistence and development. May I conclude my talk by saying, as my Muslim colleague would say, Alhamdulillah, wa billahi tawfiq wal hidayah, Allahum madini fiman hadait, wallahum atlam, wassalam alaikum, satu.